In the traditional motion picture story, the villains are usually defeated. The ending is a happy one. I can make no such promise for the picture you're about to watch.
I was born in Soviet Union. It was pretty rough. No running water, no toilets. You know, we got the fish only 1 day a week. It was Thursday. I was a happy kid. I play game. I play hockey.
I saw the Soviets play hockey for the first time on a VHS tape, and for me it was like the most incredible thing I'd ever seen in sports. It was, you know, like a revolution in creativity and artistry and you know, imagination in sport. And I was really, as a young kid, amazed, and it made a huge impression on me. And I was wondering why in such a brutally oppressive society did such free hockey exist, and on the other hand, in the United States, North American hockey, why hockey was so restrictive and confining and not free. It really made me want to know more about my roots and my family, and I started to look into the story of the hockey team and how they lived and where they came from, and I realized later that, you know, the story was really a profound examination of Soviet life and the Soviet system and Russians and what the Russian experience is and how people lived, and hockey reflected life in the Soviet Union.
Hockey was the most popular sport in the Soviet Union. From childhood, they picked out the best of the best of the best. It was politics, really. The game for them wasn't just the game, it was also propaganda.
At its core, it's a story about friendship and loyalty, and these 5 players were considered in history probably one of the greatest 5-man units ever in the history of sport. And because it's a story about friendship and loyalty and betrayal and all these things, I wanted to focus it, you know, around these guys and how they lived and interacted and sort of the camaraderie they had, and how those relationships reflected, you know, society at the time and place in the Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. And Slava Fetisov happened to be the captain of the team. He was the leader. He was like the face of the Soviet Union, both figuratively and literally. And he was a very unique character. He's very engaging and kind of unpredictable and in a way volatile. And he's a presence. He's a magnetic character. And in other ways, he's very complex and sometimes contradictory. And I thought he just an amazing character to anchor the movie around. Well, I knew that I didn't want to make a sports film. And I knew I didn't want to make a film that focused on hockey or hockey history or even a film that focused too much on history or politics. You know, I wanted to make a very emotional and profound movie, a great story. You know, beyond anything, it has to be a great story. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but my taste is that I need to make something, you know, profound and say something about sport. I had something to say about sport, but I also had something to say about, you know, politics and the meaning of sport in the context of politics, and then also, you know, society and kind of human beings and all of these deep themes. But the simple story about Slava Fetisov and his team is fascinating. What these guys, how they lived, what they had to go through to achieve, the prices they had to pay and live in that system, you know. It was fascinating, and how he had to fight for his freedom and fight against the Minister of Defense and the system. And then when he came over to America, he expected something else, and, you know, realized that it's not exactly what he expected there. and he had to fight again.
We practiced 4 times a day.
Players had to live isolated 11 months of the year.
They never get out of that camp.
Andrei Gamotov, his father was gonna die, came, said, "Can you let me see my father?" I said, "No, you have to get ready for the next game."
I had read some random things, you know, that maybe the coaches were kind of making them take things, you know, performance-enhancing things. You know, they didn't know what they were taking, or the players, they just said, "Here, take this." It didn't really come up in the conversation, and I didn't read enough information where it was like, you got to understand, the way that they played wasn't necessarily reliant on sort of physical, boom, hitting and this, you know, it was an elegant style of play, you know, and it was about the mind, and you had to be strong and skilled, but it wasn't like, you know, the NHL was a brutally aggressive, you know, it was about aggressiveness, you know, this was the opposite. So it just didn't feel like that should have been the focus of this movie, because there's so many things that I addressed. Well, there's 2 things I want to say. The first is that somehow this film is connecting to people all over the world, you know, from Cannes to, you know, United States, Canada, France, everywhere, which means that there's something about this film that is very human, you know, and unique, that people feel like they're let into a world they never knew, really. Even in Russia, they feel like they never really knew this story. And the second thing is that recently I showed this film to a high school, an entire high school. There was probably 800 people. And these are kids that, you know, pretty smart kids. And they all gave it a standing ovation, were incredibly excited. And these are kids that have no idea about Cold War and hockey, or really not really about hockey. Maybe there were some hockey fans, but I don't know. There's something. It just shows that that the film is able to reach these different kinds of people. Yeah, there's one that I've adapted from a novel called Butcher's Crossing. That is a very powerful work about a kid that drops out of Harvard and goes out west. This is during the late 1870s, and basically hooks up with these buffalo hunters and goes out into the mountains, and it becomes kind of the heart of darkness, and he's in for more than he expects, and he basically kind of learns a lot about life and human nature, and the profound insanity of human nature.
The individual had no say.
My childhood dream come true. I cannot run away from my country.
What if we offer you $1 million cash? Then would you come and play in the NHL?